So, I watched every episode of Q-Force, only to be one of the first people to talk about it. And I'm gonna talk about it, because I sat through 5 hours of Q-Force, for the explicit purpose of being able to talk about it. So now I am going to talk about it! Also, heads up, instead of fully editing this video in a way that could take weeks for me to get done, I'm just gonna play footage of me editing a different video, a speed edit if you will, both to motivate myself to actually accomplish it in the middle of my 20-credit semester, as well as make the editing work for this video that much more non-essential. That's not to say there will be no editing, it'll just be minimal. With that said, let's finally talk about Q-Force, which, with that said, it's just kind of fine. It's just a very middle of the road. I understand that this is a really bad way to start, especially with a trailer from Gay Hell.
Wasted all that masculinity on nothing.
Not nothing. My little butthole went boop.
But that's just really how it is. For those of you who don't know, Q-Force is about Steve Merriweather, a secret agent at the top of his class during the same year Don't Ask, Don't Tell is repealed, who was instantly demoted to the West Hollywood division. 10 years pass, and he and his force finally get a case out in the field, but not without putting everybody's necks, including the deputy directors, on the line. There's the leader that I mentioned, Steve Merriweather, who is determined to prove himself to the agency for the sake of whatever unfortunate recruit that comes next that ends up throwing them into chaos. Deb, a butch lesbian mechanic who's kinda like the team mom. Stat, the team's hacker and resident Satanist. Twink, who has the power of drag and anime on his side. And the resident straight guy, Buck, who got thrown on the team to keep them in line. The show throws them into a lot of LGBT-themed missions that necessitate their queerness as a vital part of not just their lives, but also their jobs. As one episode they might only be able to defuse a bomb with the kinds of trivia only a butch lesbian knows, to this random low-level mobster just happens to be into men. You know, things of that ilk. I think I should preface all of this by saying that I really don't like most adult cartoons for their humor. That's never going to be a selling point for me personally. I like Moral Oral for its character work, drama, and the slow reveal of things being more amiss than what they really appear to be. I like the Boondocks for its art style and more Peanuts-esque charm, where no good deed goes unpunished. I like the Venture Brothers for its art style, commitment to the aesthetic, and this philosophy of failure that carries through every pore of the show. I could talk extensively about any three of these shows, and there's a good chance that I might. But Q-Force was never going to draw me in with the promise of its mature humor, and it certainly isn't drawing me in with its references to the gay community, though that could just be me showing off my age in regards to some of this, but are lesbians really that into coleslaw and rescuing excessive amounts of dogs? And if they were, would I know? Maybe if you're more into sassy quips and one-liners and are at least 25 and active in the community, this might be for you, but whether or not I'm even part of the target audience is truly debatable at this point. I mean, how much do you like jokes about Survivor and the eponymous Quibi? May she rest in peace. So, I'm not watching this adult anime comedy for the humor, but I'm not really watching it for the plot either. It's relatively episodic, but carries with it a narrative through line that's fulfilled by the end of the season, like most Netflix shows, and even like most serialized adult cartoons that are off the network. And I honestly believe that they are trying to say something with the queer cast that they have assembled. That because of who these people are and the institutions that be, that they have to work twice as hard and be twice as good to get a glance. About the legacy of homophobia in the workplace, specifically oriented around the field as heavily masculine as the government and military work. About how your actions impact others, not just in the metaphorical, but the literal. About how the ones who claim to love the community the most so often prey on it for their own benefit. And that you're never truly the first in your field, just the most visible. But this is also the show that decided to write in multiple scenes where a guy is just dead-ass hanging dong for multiple episodes for practically no reason. So the gulf between the depths is deadly no matter how you try to swing it. There was one thing I actually really liked about the show, though, and that was Stat. My girlfriend and I plucked her from the trailer for future character design reference and assigned to her non-gender left lesbian, and she was honestly as great as I could have hoped for, especially once the show picked up a tad more. She's only really on the team as a way to serve probation, and although she frequently comes off as moody and distant, there's this sense that the team has to make this active effort not to isolate her, if only because they struggle to connect with her and her more abnormal interests otherwise. It also probably isn't a coincidence that I, for the life of me, can't figure out what stereotype she's supposed to represent, if any at all. And I think that's the thing about her that differentiates her from the rest of the cast, in a way. Not the stereotype aspect, just the way that I was able to connect to her as an actual character, and have this ability to interpret the ways this could interplay into a greater sense of character drama, of arcs, of development. The first time the audience even gets to see her open up, really, is when she's literally talking to an AI who deliberately puts in the effort to understand her in ways the other members of the team have not. And I honestly think that this has the potential to be very compelling, and in the same way that the rest of the show communicates the idea that everybody on this team has to work twice as hard to combat the discrimination that faces them, could also speak to a kind of in-group discrimination that none of them even intended to cause, but speak more to the need for them to stand as a strong, united front, proud of who they are and what they represent, together. It's just so easy to come up with a compelling character arc with what's left in front of me, but I don't even know if this is the kind of thing that was on the table, if ever. Given that as much as this is being advertised as the gayest show with the gayest gays ever to gay, I feel like it was playing it somewhat safe with a lot of the more basic adult jokes you could find in any number of other adult animated shows. I almost feel like this show as a whole would be better as a live-action production, not just because my ideal world of niche character drama and interactions would more likely become a reality in the world of live-action sitcom writing, but the exaggeration would probably carry more weight in a live-action setting than an animated one. It would be easier to tell what's just performance and what's truly personable when you're faced with a character who had a domineering, authoritative father who just happened to be a Cirque du Soleil performer reprimanding him for having jelly bones. Which sounds like a joke, and probably is a joke, but also it's brought up at least twice. But isn't exactly treated like your average running gag? So I don't really know what to do with this. I have it, but at what cost? So yeah, Q-Force is a solid 6 out of 10, I guess. You either like it or hate it. And the line between liking it or hating it can rely on as little as a single character, as you can see with me. I wouldn't mind if Q-Force got a second season, but the only reason I would be torn up about it not getting one is in regards to those who worked on the series not having a reliable job to get hired back for. I really do believe that the people who worked on the show are talented individuals, and even talented as a collective, but it just really isn't my taste, I guess. But if Q-Force were to get a second season, I would appreciate if they added in different kinds of queer characters, considering if you weren't a young, feminine gay man or an older butch lesbian, you're kinda out of luck for representation with this queer series that's advertising it on the basis of being queer. There were far more straight characters than there were any openly trans, ace, bi, or pan characters. And that's not even talking about the variety that lies in between the high femi to stone butch spectrum that they barely grazed here. I mean, if it's going to be the queer show, I don't think it's too much to ask for it to do the queer thing well. It's as much an identity as it is an umbrella term. Reflect one or reflect both. In the meantime, if you're looking for more animated spy shows with a lot more suspense and general ambiance, I recommend Carmen Sandiego on Netflix. If you're looking for a live-action lesbian spy enemies to lovers, I recommend Debs wherever you can find it. And if you're looking for gay spy lovers to enemies but also a musical, I recommend Spies Are Forever, right here on YouTube. Now, this is usually the part of the video where I usually do all my tearful farewells and cram in as many last-minute updates as I can for the sake of maintaining your attention for as long as I have it. But none of that now because I have a Patreon now! Half so I can get a video editor and actually take less than 5 years to put out content, half so I can live! The only tier available at the moment is like $1, and the only rewards I'm really going to be giving out is a chance to be in the credits, and some minor behind-the-scenes stuff, so it's all very low commitment, but who knows? Someday, it might not be. We can all hope. At the time of this upload, there's going to be the original unfinished script of this video where I was going to review each and every single episode instead of doing an overview of the whole series, and I'll be uploading this as a transcript as well, so you can understand me and my weird little script quirks a bit better. Until then, I assure you that the next time we meet, I will most certainly be talking about some more random bullshit.